Central Committee 101 training. It is co-hosted by the Medina Democratic Party, the Northern Medina Democrats, which is a club, the Medina Democratic Club, the Wadsworth Democratic Club, and Democrats Empower Medina. I'd like to thank the members of the committee, John Welker, Mosey Welch, Kathy Jones, Mary Emhoff, Pat Walker, Danielle Fascone, Julie Beatty, Pam Miller, and Donna Miller. And we will do Q&A at the end. If you can hold your questions or else put them in the chat, because Pam is monitoring the chat to answer questions. And if you're not muted, if you can keep muted, that would be great. And what are we here to talk about tonight? We're going to go over the Democratic Party structure, how to become a registered Democrat, what a Central Committee member is versus a new term we're bringing in, and now we're going to move on to the agenda. Okay, we're going to talk about the Democratic Party structure, how to become a registered Democrat, Central Committee member versus precinct organizer, what they do, and the precinct organizer is a new term we're introducing. What they do, how to start outreach, and then some next steps and final tips and takeaways. So moving right into Democratic Party organization. And once again, this is from the perspective of the Medina County Democratic Party. So now I see I have a problem here reading my notes. The Democratic Party is like a pyramid with the National Democratic Party or Committee at the top, which is called the DNC. And then in the middle, you have 50 state parties. And at the bottom, for each state, they have some sort of an organization. In Ohio, we have precincts. So each county has how many of our precincts that makes up the county party. So for the state of Ohio, the Democratic Party is one of the 50 states, and the Medina Democratic Party is one of 88 of the counties that makes up the Ohio Democratic Party. The parties, each of the levels focuses on different elections, basically. So the DNC focuses on federal elections, which are basically in even years. So every 4 years we vote for the president. And in even years, there's usually voting for U.S. Congress and the U.S. senators. The ODP at the middle, the state party basically focuses on state elections, and that is also even year elections. So like every 4 years, we vote for a governor, auditor, treasurer, a secretary of state. Supreme Court judges have a 6-year term, but it's typically in even years. And then we vote for our state and Senate representatives also in even years. The bottom level, the county parties focus on local elections or countywide elections. So those would be like, and that's every odd year election. It would be for a commissioner, and I think the commissioners are 4 years, commissioner, auditor, treasurer, recorder, clerk of courts, judges, once again, it's 6 years instead of 4 years, sheriff, a coroner, and engineer. And then very local elections for like your city, township, your city mayor, your township trustees, your city treasurers and auditors, etc., and your village and school board representatives and your municipal courts are all handled by the local party. Then that is the purpose of the party, is basically to find and elect candidates. The way that the party is actually created, from, once again, the perspective of the Medina Democratic Party, is that each state county has bylaws that are based on the organization above them. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily operating the same, but we have the same values. We align with the same values. So as an example, in the state of Ohio, we have primaries, but in Iowa, they hold caucuses. In the state of Ohio, we elect our judges. In the state of Iowa, they appoint their judges. So it doesn't mean that the DNC dictates down to everyone what they must do, but it sets a platform of values that each of the other organizations below use to create their own bylaws. The state of Ohio has 88 counties. supported by the ODP, and the Medina Democratic Party has 121 precincts in it, which makes up the Central Committee for the Medina County Democratic Party. So from a organizational standpoint, the only interaction that the Medina County Democratic Party really has with the DNC is that once every 4 years, we hold a caucus for the state Senate district, I believe it's 22, to select members to go to the DNC convention to then vote for the presidential candidate. When it comes to the state party, they actually are organized with a central committee. And so once every 4 years during the state Senate, the state Senate, a central committee man and a woman is elected from each state Senate district every 4 years during the gubernatorial primary. So there are 66 members, which are 33 men and 33 women. The state central committee elects a state executive committee to run the day-to-day operations. And it's very similar at the county level. At the county level, our central committee for Medina County is made up of 121 central committee members, and they are elected every 4 years during the presidential primary. And if we don't fill all the spots, we can subsequently appoint people to those positions. The central committee members then elect the officers for the central committee, and they also elect the 15 members to form the Medina County Democratic Party's executive committee to run the day-to-day operations of the party. Once those people are elected, then they elect their own officers of the party. So for Medina County, we have Mike Kovac, who is the chair of both the central and the executive committees. We have Pam Miller, who is the vice chair for the executive committee. We have me, Carol Gurney, as the vice chair for the central committee. Pat Walker is the secretary for both the central and executive committees, and Donald Baker is the treasurer for the executive committee. So if you think about this, in reality, the party is a grassroots effort that starts at the precinct level to form the county party, which then supports the state party, which then supports the national party. Most of the county parties are made up of volunteers, at least in Medina County, that is true. We're all volunteers, nobody is paid. And the state and national level, I don't know. There may be people paid. I'm sure there probably are people paid at those levels. But all fundraising that is done by each of these different organizations, the money flows up and down these organizations to help support candidates running for office. And then, in addition to having the actual elected people that make up the party, there are clubs and there are aligned organizations. So in Medina County, we have the Medina County Democratic Party, sponsored and formed the Northern Medina Democratic Club, the Medina Democratic Club, and the Wadsworth Club. And that was in an effort to have locally geographic clubs to reach out to the people in their areas, so people didn't have to travel from the south to the north, etc. And then there's also an organization called the Democrats Empower Medina, which aligns very well with the values of the Democratic Party. It wasn't necessarily formed out of the party, but it is aligned. All these social clubs, the goal is to help find and elect candidates to office. We also have aligned organizations that primarily work on issues. So you have organizations like Medina County Indivisible, Sustainable Medina County, Out Support, and they work on issues that also align with democratic values. And so we also work with those organizations. And that pretty much makes up what we concentrated on is the 3 different ways to look at the Democratic Party, from what our purpose is in electing people, how we're organized, and then who we're aligned with. Okay, so the big key here is how to become a registered Democrat in the state of Ohio. And you do that through voting. So each state has its own party affiliation rules for how they do that. In the state of Ohio, we do it by voting in a primary. And in a primary, if there's a Democratic ballot, you pull that Democratic ballot and you vote that Democratic ballot, then you are marked as a Democrat. There is only one other way that you can change your party affiliation other than voting, and that is if you want to run as a candidate. When you file your paperwork, you can declare what party you want to run in. So a Republican or an independent, if they want to run as a Democrat, when they file their paperwork, they can have their party affiliation changed that way. So if you're not a Democrat, if you're not a registered Democrat, you haven't voted in a party, but you want to do that, just let us know, run as a Democrat, and you can change your affiliation that way. There are typically Democratic parties typically Democratic primaries for the presidential and the government. I'm sorry, but I don't know how to read some of my wording here. Okay, yes, there are typically Democratic primaries when you're voting in the even years for the presidential and the government and the governor candidates. There may not be a Democratic primary in an odd year. So for example, this election coming up on May 5th, it's an odd year. So we do not have any candidates on the ballot. Everyone who said they wanted to run had no one contending against them. So there are no candidates on the ballot. So this odd year, you would not be able to pull a Democratic ballot and change your registration. You will remain a Democrat as long as you continue to vote in Democratic primaries. However, should you go 4 years without voting in a Democratic primary, or if you were to in a primary pull a Republican or an issue ballot, then you would lose your affiliation with the Democratic Party. And some people may say, well, what difference does it make if I'm a registered Democrat or not? And there are 3 specific reasons that you may want to keep your affiliation. The first is if you would like to work in a election as a poll worker. They have a Republican and a Democrat, even number working in the elections. If you want to be known as a Democratic poll worker, you need to be a registered Democrat. If you want to run to become a Central Committee member, you must already be a registered Democrat. That is the one office to run for that you can't change your affiliation when you apply your paperwork. You have to already be a registered party Democrat in order to run for Central Committee. And if you wanted to sign a petition for a Democratic candidate, you have to be a registered Democrat. Otherwise, your signature doesn't help whoever's petition you just signed. Okay, now we're coming kind of to the heart of our presentation, which is a Central Committee versus a precinct organizer. So we already talked about how the grassroots level of the party is the central committees that are in the state of Ohio. It's the central committees. And central committees were elected or appointed to represent their precinct to the county party. They're officially members of the party. But there are people so we want to introduce a new term, precinct organizer, because there are people who have not voted in the Democratic Party primary, rather, that still want to get involved with the party. And they want to do the same work as a central committee member in their precinct or maybe adopt a nearby precinct, but they can't officially be called a central committee person because they're not a registered Democrat. Or maybe they already have a central committee person in their precinct, so they want to help that person with organizing. We want to call these people precinct organizers. And we want to train them, get them up to date, have them do all the same type of work as a central committee person. Unfortunately, the only thing they can't do is then actually vote. And the types of things that central committee people vote on are like the bylaws for the party. If there's a vacancy because a elected official or a central committee person they've either passed away a vacancy or they've decided they no longer want to participate, and so they resign their position, etc. So there's certain situations where central committee members must come and vote by law, and obviously precinct organizers would not be allowed to do that type of voting. Let me see, is there anything else? And then the hope would be that if you were a precinct organizer, that in the next primary, Democratic primary, then they would pull the Democratic ballot, get their affiliation changed, and then we could actually appoint them to become a central committee member. And why are we talking about two different types of people? That is because in Medina County, we only have 67 of our 121 precincts filled. So we are just over half of our eligible people working for the party. We have half the positions filled. So all the little green dots that you see on here are open Democratic precincts. And precincts are defined by population, which is why you see more of a grouping of the precincts around the cities. So like, for example, in Liverpool up here, oops, wait a minute, sorry, where did I just go? Okay, in Liverpool, you'll see that C and A are already filled, C and A are already filled, but B and D are open. Brunswick obviously has a lot of openings. Medina City seems to have some openings. Wadsworth has been working on getting theirs filled, so they're looking better. But anywhere you see a green dot on here is an open precinct that we're looking for help in. And all of this information about where the open precincts are and which is filled and not is on the Medina County Democratic Party's website, which is medinadems.org. If you go to that website and look at about and party leaders, you'll see a listing of all of the precincts and whether they're filled or not. And the next thing we're going to talk about is what do central committee members do? And I'm going to turn it over to Julie to talk about that.
Thank you, Carol. What do central committee members do? There's a variety of ways that central committee members can be active in their precincts, and what duties member chooses to do depends on the amount of time their schedule allows them to get to the position, and to the comfort level that some people have in doing certain tasks. As Carol had highlighted previously, the most important duty of a central committee member, beyond voting for Democrats in every election, is to attend central committee meetings where a vote may be taking place. Many times the Ohio Revised Code requires that a certain percentage of central committee members be present in order for a vote to occur and to be counted. So I guess the most important bullet underneath being a responsible committee member is making sure that you attend central committee meetings where a vote needs to take place. But in an ideal world, central committee members will make and maintain contact with all of the Democrats in their precinct. As some of these bullets indicate, they may help people to get registered to vote, provide them with absentee ballot applications, recommend poll workers to the Board of Elections. So the next few slides are going to talk about some other activities, other ideas, other duties that a central committee member could do with help from other central committee members or help from other Democrats that they unearth in their precinct. So next slide, Carol, please.
Yes, I changed it.
Okay. A central committee member should do their best to support Democratic Party activities. So we're saying periodically attend party fundraisers, workshops, volunteer for special events and activities when your schedule allows. And then more importantly, and really an effective way to be to support Democratic Party activities as being involved with your Democratic club or an affiliated Democratic organization. it's not, only a great way to stay informed about what's going on in your community, but Democratic clubs and organizations also hold fundraisers and events where you can meet additional Democrats and you can introduce Democrats to other Democrats. So, it's just an excellent way to support Democratic Party activities. Next slide.
Yep. I did.
Okay. Central committee members should do their best to support Democratic candidates and their campaigns. And by doing this, they can help candidates get signatures for their petitions. They can, for yard sign locations, etc. But if you get to know some of the Dems in your precinct, and you may find, you'll find individuals who would love to host a house party or a fundraiser for a candidate, or canvas for a candidate, or write letters to support Dem candidates and issues. So it's just a good idea to make sure that you're opening up, that you're getting to know the Dems in your precinct in order to kind of build your network and to help you with those activities and those issues. Carol?
Yep.
Okay. Here a second. My notes are frozen here. Give me a minute here, I'm sorry. A central committee member should do their best to be an active and enthusiastic Democrat. So I know there's a lot of bullets on this slide here, but in order to do that, you should have an answer ready when you're, talking with other Democrats in your precinct as to why you are a Democrat, why you're involved in Democratic politics, and why others should get involved too. And you should try to educate themselves on everything about a candidate that's running for office, so that you can share that with the Democrats that you meet in your precinct. And then you can encourage those Democrats to vote, and then invite Dems in your precincts to meetings and events, and introduce them to other Dems and candidates, and help find Dems to fill the open central committee positions. And then while you're building all of this rapport and meeting new individuals, you're then able to keep an eye out for maybe some potential Democratic candidates in the future. And really, as a personal example, here in Wadsworth, as Carol mentioned, we have one central committee opening left in the city, and then a few township positions to fill. But that all came about by, first of all, Democrats getting together and joining the Wadsworth Democratic Club, and joining Democrats in Power in Medina. And we all started inviting people to come to our meetings. And then we all realized that there's some, individuals that we met that lived in precincts that were open and meeting central committee people. So we asked them if they would like to do that. And then we've just worked really hard at least half of our precincts have gone out and introduced themselves to Democrats in their precincts, by leaving a door hanger on the door. So, and just by dropping lit and that type of thing. So we've really grown our club and our central committee just by doing all of these grassroots efforts and helping each other. So it's just been really beneficial. Okay, Carol?
Yep.
I'm having a hard time getting my notes to move up for some silly reason. Okay. Sorry about that. So we've reached to how to introduce yourself. So we have all of these wonderful things that in an ideal world, we would like our Democrats to be able, our central committee people and precinct organizers to be able to do in our precincts. So the best way to get to know the Democrats in your precinct is obviously to introduce yourself to them. And so depending on your precinct, you might choose to canvass, knock on doors, drop off a business card or a door hanger, mail a postcard. We do have one Wadsworth Township precinct that we have a central committee person for, and it's not really a walkable district or walkable precinct. So she has in the past mailed postcards to the Democrats in her township and plans to do so moving forward. So you'll know, you know your precinct, you know if it's walkable, you know that you can get individuals to help you if you need to, if you need help and assistance, if you're not comfortable canvassing, if you're not, comfortable doing phone banking, whatever it is. We have experienced central committee members that are willing to help, and we have certainly when you get to know your Democrats in your precinct better, you'll be able to recruit people that maybe love to do that canvassing, like I mentioned before, or would love to host a house party. So I guess the bottom line is there's always going to be somebody there to help you. So you want to meet all the Democrats in your precinct. So how do you find those Democrats? There's two ways at this point in time. The Medina County Board of Elections website is available to everybody. And there's a way to do a voter report generation. Those voter reports just have addresses and just general information. The Ohio Democratic Party also has a tool that a lot of our candidates and some of the clubs are using called VAN, or Vote Builder, or VAN. And it's a voter database that is used by, again, local parties and committees and to pull voter data out to be used. And so Vote Builder contains addresses and phone numbers. And then there's also like a handheld device or software that can be used on your phone to track the houses that you hit and that type of thing. So those are the two ways that we will be able to get central committee individuals their precinct information.
Okay, so what are the next steps? After this presentation, which was, a general presentation, we want to have a face-to-face meeting. So we are scheduling that for Monday, May 5th at 6 p.m. at the Medina Library. The idea here is that it's getting to know other people, and trying to find someone to team up with is going to be advantageous to helping you create an action plan and get started. The information we want to cover in that meeting is go in more detail about how to get started and get involved in your precinct. And we also want to introduce a grant program, because there is some costs that are associated with central committee people. We're not ready to talk about the grant program right now because it's just being developed, but we want to help central committee people if they are not able to, pay some of the costs. Maybe we want to help offset that. But the main purpose of the meeting is really to meet and get to know each other, and to help each other to create an action plan to get started. And the final tips and takeaways, once again, this is an all volunteer effort. I found in my job that I did a lot of things I didn't want to do, but I was getting paid to do it, so I did it. In the volunteer world, it doesn't work that way. You should think about what your skill sets are, what you like to do, because that's what you're going to do as a volunteer. So how does what you've done in your life, your skill sets you have, how can you bring that to the party? And then how can you focus that into your precinct? It's really the best way to make your action plan, and then find somebody to work with you, because that this helps to motivate you when one person is down or whatever, the other person comes along and you get re-energized again. And then everyone has different strengths, so ask for help. I mean, either from the Democratic Party, the clubs we have, or the Central Committee. I mean, we'll find somebody to help work with you. And then these are the organizations that I mentioned in the beginning. This is the emails for each of those organizations. If you reach out to any one of these organizations expressing interest in wanting to be a Central Committee or a precinct organizer, and they will take your information and funnel you in to get somebody, one of us here who is willing to help you. So from that, we're just going to go into Q&A. I don't know if I need to, I think I'm going to stop sharing unless somebody needs me to bring a slide back up, but I think it's better for us to see each other.
Carol and Pam, Jean has a question in the chat. Do you have to be a resident of the precinct to represent it?
Yes, you must be within that precinct to represent that precinct. If you already have a Central Committee person in your precinct, that's where we would, and you still want to do this type of work, that's when we'd love you to be a precinct organizer, either adopt a nearby precinct where nobody has taken that position, or help that Central Committee person who is in that precinct with reaching out to the people in that precinct. But yes, to run for that office, you have to be a member of the precinct. Hopefully I answered that question. Did any follow up on that?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other chat questions, or does anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, John.
So in this May 5th meeting, are you gonna go over this Van Vote Builder app so I could identify Democrats in my precinct?
I'm not sure if we're going to do an actual presentation on Van Vote Builder. We're going to talk about it more, but we are planning on having more Zoom meetings that delve into each one of these situations and or each one of these types of tools to help give that information out. So whether you get direct access to Vote Builder or you have a lead person who helps get you that information, ODP controls access to it, and I am the local data captain for Medina County, but there's rules and regulations, like candidates have to pay, etc. So it's not open for every Democrat to get direct access to, but the information within it we want to get dispersed out to every precinct person. So
Okay, because I mean, like, one of my earlier questions was precinct organizer. I've never actually seen one in the wild. I have a hard time where I live even finding a Democrat. And, I'd love to identify Democrats in my neighborhood.
But
Yep.
John, that information is available on the Board of Elections right now to anyone. And so maybe at the next meeting, Carol, that might be a good idea to go over
Yes.
how to get that.
Yep.
Well, Mike, I noticed that you said the addresses are available. Do you have is it the name and the address?
The name and
Absolutely.
the address.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just the
well, it's
name.
name and the address, yeah, so it's out of
Yeah.
the Medina Board of Elections, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can deal
Yeah.
with that, thank you.
The name and the
There's
address,
several.
the name and the
But the-
address and their voting history, you get, the Board of Elections provides that information.
Okay,
But the party, Carol and Mike, the party has Vote Builder. Some of the clubs have Vote Builder. And we can provide that information to a person, to a precinct person if you requested it. The good thing about Vote Builder is that it includes phone numbers and email addresses, which is a lot easier than just dealing with an address like they have at the Board of Elections. But it might not, but Vote Builder might not actually have everybody in your precinct, whereas the Board of Elections would.
Yeah, the vote builder is basically a tool that the Democratic Party pull information from tons of different areas, like the post office, the magazine groups or whatever, and then they try to then assign a value as to how they know you're registered Democrat or you're not a registered Democrat or you're Republican, but how likely are you to lean Democratic, especially for independents? So they try to pull a whole bunch of information together to try to assess that.
And the Ohio Democratic Party does do periodic programs on Vote Builder for candidates who are going to be using it. They don't just let any person. For some reason, they don't let any person, just any person use it. But I noticed that Fred has his hand up, Carol.
Well, I've downloaded the voter registrations for Medina County from the Board of Elections, and I've started sorting them out by district, by precinct. If someone has a specific precinct and they'd like, I can email them a database if they let me know what precinct they want sorted out and sorted to Republican, Democrat, or non-affiliated. And that's the straight information that has the name, every name in that household, street address, and their voting history and affiliation if there is one. The affiliation may be outdated because I'm still down as a Republican because I kept trying before I finally threw up my hands and surrendered to get more moderate candidates. So take it with a grain of salt, but I've got all that sorted out if anybody would like it.
The Medina County Board of Elections is the official database. That is the way that state of Ohio is organized for the Board of Elections is as bottom up. So every county, that is the official, right? If you're listed as a Republican there, then you have not pulled a Democratic ballot in a Democratic primary to change your affiliation. And unfortunately, you won't be able to do that in this primary. But next year, 2026, if you vote in that primary and ask for a Democratic ballot, you'll get or you could run in the election as a candidate. You can get it changed a little bit earlier before that primary. But that's the only way to change your regration is by voting.
No, I'm not concerned with changing the registration. I'm just saying that if you get the list, it may look at unaffiliated and at least, and probably some Republicans. Also, the state database is updated every day at 4 o'clock from the counties. So you can look up any date if you want to look up a previous date or something. It's an interesting database they've got.
And
what Fred says is right. You can do a list of everybody in your precinct. You can do a list by party, Democrat, Republican, and you can do a list by no party. So there might be a lot of people who are no party that lean your way, and you might want to get in touch with those people in your precinct. And by the way, Patty Andrews just put in a chat to me that there is an ODP vote builder training that you can sign up for on Mobilize, which apparently is open to everybody. Do you know anything about that, Carol?
No, I do not.
It's
On May
posted
20th.
to everyone, Pam. Everyone can see that link if they want to click on it and save that link.
Did you do that? Did you?
I know they periodically do training. I just didn't know they had one coming up.
Yeah. And Steve has a question. Can one change your voting registration by visiting the Board of Elections? No, the only way you can do it is by voting in a primary, or if you are running for a party office, if you want to run for county commissioner or a partisan office, not a trustee or a council member, unless you're in Brunswick. The only way you can do it is by voting in a primary.
Okay, any other questions?
Just listening to you, I just want to make sure people know that if they don't have a party affiliation that fits the Democratic Party at this moment, we don't want them to wait they want to work now and volunteer to do things that you don't you're welcome. And,
Absolutely.
you just won't have that designation and you won't be able to be a central committee person who votes, but
Yeah.
your
But just,
efforts are
You
welcome.
would be a precinct
much so.
organizer. Yeah, you would be
Yes.
a precinct organizer.
yeah, or just any volunteer with the
Existing.
party.
Or
Yeah,
just any, correct.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think just to clarify more on May 5th, I think we've talked about, I think certainly getting together and, maybe briefly reviewing for those that couldn't attend tonight, the basics of central committee, but our plan was then to break off into regions. So central committee people could get to know each other in like the southern part of Medina County and in the northern part of Medina County and that type of thing. I mean, getting together with everybody at the beginning and then kind of breaking off into our regions and just getting to know each other a little better. So I think that's, and then eventually, as you stated, Carol, having Zoom meetings to deep dive into certain aspects of being a central committee member.
Yep. So does I think, Mary Emhoff, you've done you've done outreach into your central committee. I know that is Kathy Jones still on here? I know Kathy Jones has. Kathy, do you want to
Yeah,
give
I have.
examples of what you've done?
Well, I've gone door to door, and I had cards printed out in the beginning when I was a central committee person, and I've given my cards out with contact information in case they have any questions about voting or need signs or anything. And then when it's campaign time, I do go door to door. And I've done it enough times now. I know which people want signs, and they'll say to me, "We were waiting for the sign. We knew you were going to come with it." So they do expect you to come back and check with them for signs, and then I've gone and they will sign petitions whenever you have them because they already know you and they're just familiar with what's going on. So yeah, just going door to door and introducing yourself, giving them your card or whatever, and just telling them if they have any questions, and then staying in touch, when it's election time or campaign time or whatever. And it works really good. So they know you after a couple of years. They really do know me. So it helps. It helps. But that's how I started out, just going door to door with a card saying who I was and how they could reach me if they had questions and what was going on. So that's how I did it anyway.
Gary
Carol-
Cole is asking about seeing a video of this event. And Christina and Nancy, could you check the chat? I had a question for you in the chat. But Gary's asking about, are we saving this so he can see it or review it later?
This is being videotaped. I'm gonna have someone try to cut it down, at least for the beginning part with the introductions of all of us, et cetera, and just start with the presentation. So we will be sending that out, and I can also include the slides when we send it out to everyone who is signed up for emails with the Medina County Democratic Party. So yes, there were some people who had contacted me and said they could not attend tonight, so they were happy to hear that also. The video may take a little bit longer than the slides, but we can send the slides out quickly, so.
The slides looked wonderful.
Thank you. And with the slides, I'll send them as a PDF. They have the notes below. So you can read the details and hear the note or read the notes. You can see the slide and see the details underneath each slide.
Carol, you really did a nice job.
It was a group effort. It was a group effort, but thank you.
Well, the group did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Carol.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. And we kept it within an hour, so we're good. And wait a minute, Gary Cole, did you learn, was there something new or did we miss?
Yes, I was I would be interested in seeing the first part with the introductions, just to put faces with, even though I'm in Lorain County and may not overlap that much with Medina County, I wouldn't mind seeing the introductions with faces and names and duties that they do, but certainly if that's not appropriate for the Medina group. I understand that.
Okay, well, maybe I'll ask her if she can move that to the end of the presentation so that
Ah.
people don't have to wade through that.
Great.
Great. Did we talk about something that you didn't know or learn something new, or is it pretty much the
You know,
same?
I'm not sure that I can really say that. The first one I saw was about 9 months ago, and then the second one was 6 months ago. And I was still pretty green at all this, so it's hard for me to exactly recall. They did get into, in ours, they got a lot more into, it probably was the vote builder. And maybe just the county website also showing how to do the actual searches and all that.
Okay,
But on the same hand, it was kind of overwhelming, and I really like videos of things where I can stop and start and think about it. So, and these two training sessions were not videotaped, so they weren't accessible later.
okay,
So, I really like the fact that Medina County is doing these Zoom things. It's more convenient to go to, and it's easier to attend more things. And one other comment, if I may, it seems like, so you put this together yourself, this presentation, you made the PowerPoint slides and all that.
yes,
It seems like in general with the individual groups within a county and the counties themselves, there's a lot of duplication of efforts. Like the precinct training is basically the same, what people are supposed to do. And I don't know, maybe there's a downside of having more of a centralized shared presentation, but I'm just thinking of from a best practices view, and just trying to reduce the work of all the individuals at all these different levels, just having more of a sharing of resources and things like that. That's it.
So Gary, we actually reached out to the Ohio Democratic Party to see if they had a program, and they apparently did do a precinct training program earlier in the year, and we couldn't get a response to get the slides that they had from that. And they're apparently going to do another one sometime in May. But so we just went ahead and did our own, and we didn't do it from total scratch because we've had these materials around for years. But I hear what you're saying. Be a
Well,
lot
and
easier
I
if there
haven't,
were.
I'm on Monday, there is a committee, they're trying to form committees in the Lorain County Party, and I'm attending that meeting. And I haven't pitched what I just said to Lorain County people yet, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Well, and if you think about it, what I talked about, what each of the different layers of the party focuses on, like the state party last year, it hired a whole bunch of people and did a whole bunch of stuff last year because it was, presidential election time, and the DNC geared up, and everybody geared up. But now they've gotten rid of a lot of their interns and people that they hired, and it was probably those people who put on the central committee presentation, because when we tried to contact who did that, nope, none of them work for the ODP anymore. So,
Interesting.
it's an ebb and flow. There's really a 4-year cycle when it comes to elections, because every year is different. If it's a local, if it's a governor, if it's a local, or if it's a presidential election. I mean, it really varies. The election, the same activities occur, but they are much bigger during the presidential election, much smaller during local elections.
Very interesting. Thank you.
We're trying to really gear up for the midterms. These midterms are real important now.
They are, but what's most important, really, when you think about it, is 2020, this year, 2025, to elect people at the local level, at the trustee level, the school board level, the city and village level. Because the more Democrats that we can elect in those positions, the more people we have who can maybe move up and then run for a county position, run for a state position. We don't really have much of a, I guess what you call a bench, and that's what we need. We need people to step up and run. Even if you don't win, at least you will have made the effort, and maybe force somebody in a village or precinct to notice that you're interested, and maybe you don't win this year, but maybe you win next time. So I think that this year, people tend to sort of slough off what you call the off-year elections. There really is no such thing as an off-year election. Every year is an on-year election. But these local positions, they might not seem glamorous, but they are really, really important.
Mm. Mhm.
Does anyone have any information or strong personal beliefs on issue 2 that we're voting on right now?
Is it for this Brown Stadium?
No,
No.
it's
No?
No.
it's a bond issue for roads, road projects. So like bridge projects in Medina County, things like that. I believe there's no increase in taxes. It's just renewing something that's been around for a long time.
I'm trying to find out who awards the money that, from the bonds.
Mhm.
I haven't been able to find that out yet.
I don't know if it goes through ODOT or not.
I believe it does down to the county, and then the county disperses it out.
This is Medina. I just noticed, reading about it, the only ones that voted against it at the state level were 4 Republicans. So I assume it's got support of both Democrats and Republicans. And as Pam said, it doesn't have anything to do with the stadium, but it's roads and bridges. And it looks like something that the Democrats at the state level supported. So that's probably what I will do.
My way, we've got Highland School District wanting an additional levy. So that's controversial out my way.
Yeah. Well, this is Medina again, too. And I'm very disappointed, of course, with Republicans in Ohio with their voucher program, using taxpayer money to reimburse a lot of the rich people for private schools and religious schools. And I'm also upset when they're forcing the school boards to force school boards to allow children to leave school during the day for religious education or whatever they want to call it. It's a method of trying to indoctrinate, in my opinion, children when they're young so they can have an influence on their parents. But it's just a complete disregard for separation of church and state by our Republicans at the State House. And that's why if we get any Democratic signs, I'll put them up in my yard.
Another thing that had been in an early budget was money for parents who homeschooled, that they would get a voucher from the state
Yes.
for money. And I find that troubling because we're not supporting our public schools.
Yeah, they're destroying our public schools is the intent.
And our libraries, and all of this is going to come back on the communities who are going to have to put up levies to be able to support these things.
Yeah, they've cut the food banks, the libraries, the schools. It's we're heading down a dark path, I think.
Yeah, well, when he started, and I agree with you. What the hell happened to separation of church and state?
Yeah,
right.
And for the life of me, I can't understand how that's legal. And it's like, if you said, well, I want to have these kids come out and we're all going to go to the mosque, or we're going to go to the worship Satan, I think they'd find a way to shut that down pretty damn quick.
right.
Well, I think the biggest issue with this school release program and how it's going to be used is LifeWise is funded by the Heritage Foundation, and they have a lot of money. But if these other groups wanted to do it, they don't have those deep pockets, so they can't afford the buses and the place, to pay to take them. So LifeWise has set themselves up quite well to do this student indoctrination, but I will tell you that even some parents that put their kids in that program have pulled them out of the program. I went to a LifeWise meeting undercover, and anyway, it was quite interesting what areas they're having concerns in, and that, you know, schools are getting more savvy about how they draw up these release programs. But LifeWise has very deep pockets, and that is the issue. It's not, you know, if anybody could do it, then, you know, it would be a free-for-all, but I think then they wouldn't do it. I don't know why they can't do it after school. I don't get it.
I don't either.
Anyway,
But it's a done deal. Like it was, you have to have this in your policy as a school
Mhm.
board.
Yeah.
right.
And
Yep.
so the school boards like Brunswick was just had their reading of theirs. So they're getting smart about it, where it says if you have academic standards, that class can't be missed. So that's basically any course, including music and art and PE, which is a huge concern of mine, being a music teacher.
Yeah.
Policies also that Brunswick has says you cannot give children food or trinkets or things like that as rewards for attending these classes, because that was a huge issue too. So I think you really need, the school board members need to be aware of the policies that they're putting in, because you have to put in a policy now. Like it's a done deal. We
Yep.
have no choice about this anymore. So like the new fight is just making sure that your school board has a good policy in place to protect your students. And also like making LifeWise take all the liability for what happens too.
Right.
that These policies have. So if you need a sample policy, Honesty for Ohio Education has a great one that they're sharing out there. So bring
Yeah.
that to the attention of your board members.
The Medina City Schools passed a really restrictive one as well.
Yes.
I think that the students basically have about 30 minutes. I don't think this is really going to end up flying, because what can you do in 30 minutes?
No, exactly. And by the
Especially,
time,
yeah.
most of the kids are ending up missing their lunchtime and recess time. And so which is unfortunate, but yes, again, what can you do by the time you get the kids bussed out and back? Also, they have to provide rosters. Like that was important too, like that they're keeping attendance and that the LifeWise people or the religious group is, and not the staff of the school.
And I know Medina's requires that that they must provide background checks for all of the people who are involved.
Yes, because the background checks that LifeWise was doing were not very good. They were hiring like people that had lost their teaching licenses for having inappropriate, like texting in students inappropriately. So like they, again, background checks, but they have, like, it's the policy. Just be aware of what your school boards are doing now, because they can help us.
Yeah. These are dismal times.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Okay, I think unless anybody else has anything else, thank you everyone for attending, and thanks for the discussion at the end. And I look for the email with the slides, and then another email will have the video.